Hello everybody and welcome to my video on Snowflake. So today I want to talk about Snowflake, one of the more discussed stocks out there. And it's typically a stock that is described for two things. One of them, it's owned by Warren Buffett. So why is Warren Buffett interested in a stock like this that doesn't fit the bill? And it's typically also known as being quote unquote overvalued. And so whenever you hear this stock discussed, people say, oh, the stock is so overvalued. What is going on? Well, I'm going to try to talk about what's going on with this stock, if it's actually overvalued, uh, and most importantly, talking about the growth of this company, which is really redefining the meaning of what growth means. Like this company has growth that I've never seen before for a SaaS software. And SaaS companies grow really fast, but this company just grows so fast. And we're going to try to dig into that and to why that is and why that company could be so large, why could it have such a high terminal value, and why I invest in this company. This is not investment advice, but I love Snowflake. I think Snowflake has a bright future. So before I go on to describe Snowflake, Snowflake operates in the area of data science. So it is all about compiling, uploading, analyzing, storing data for the modern enterprise. And the modern enterprise has more and more data. Data grows faster and faster and faster. And what is that this data is used for? Well, this data is used for making better decisions. And more, this data is being used to run apps, which are fully autonomous apps, which will just make decisions on their own and run the organization on its own with very little input from manager. I believe that is the long-term picture of Snowflake. For now, it's data analysis, data dashboard, but in the future, you can easily see apps being built on top of that layer of computing where companies can just run themselves. It's part of this movement of companies becoming much closer to software. And software runs the world, or at least software runs the business world. And this is a company that is at the root of that. So before we do, Snowflake is part of an interesting duopoly. The other main company that focuses on creating a data cloud platform is Databricks. And very interestingly, Databricks might have wanted to do an IPO, but they didn't get around to it. The crash of tech stocks happened. And so Snowflake's, however, got its IPO done. But it's important to realize that there's another competitor out there that is not public. It's a private firm that is competing with Snowflake really intensely as hard as they can. I do believe Snowflake is the better company of the two, but they both started with a slightly different focus in the sense that Databricks has always been a more technical app. It was based in Spark and machine learning language, and it's also a different culture. It was a business started with academics, so a much more technical approach to the cloud platform, to the data cloud platform. Snowflake, on the other hand, is about being easy to use. And it was started by enterprise people that were all about productivity and ease of use and minimizing the number of expensive data scientists that you have to hire to run useful software. So I would put Snowflake much closer to that low code to no code movement, where to operate Snowflake, really all you have to do is know how to use MySQL, one of the older and easier to learn programming language that you could think of. And so it's very easy to see a lot of practitioners, perhaps the bulk of the market, not being hugely experienced data scientists, preferring Snowflake because Snowflake is enterprise ready, because Snowflake is easy to use. But we are moving into each other's market, and Databricks is trying to offer what Snowflake's offer, and Snowflake is trying to offer what Databricks offers. And I would argue both of them are also trying to offer what Palantir offers. So it's definitely a very, very competitive market. But I do believe Snowflake has the lead right now. And of course, it's tough to argue with that when you look at the sales when you look at the revenue growth of Snowflake, which we'll get into absolutely insane revenue growth. So what is a data cloud platform or operating system at a high level? What is it? What are we talking about? Well, let's start with the beginning. So in the beginning, companies have large data files, JSONs, uh, uh, comma CSV, comma separated values file. They have very, very large data files. And I don't know if you've opened a 20 gigabyte file of data, but it's almost impossible. I mean, it takes forever to scroll down. It takes forever to copy when you have to copy that data. It's not like it's easy data to copy because it's a very, very precise data. And it can take hours for a powerful computer actually to handle the larger files, the larger data files. Could even take days, could even be impossible. These files are very complicated to handle. They very often get corrupted as well. And they're omnipresent across the organization. Uh, every single piece of software, data collection, customer facing tool, all of these different tools that corporations use produce their own data sets stored in these heavy data files. And so the do-it-yourselfer, what do they do in the past? Well, they just share these files on, say, FTP servers, or they use APIs, and it's just a very, very big mess because, for example, when you just share files, say by a server, FTP server, well, that link, for example, may not be secured enough. So data, there's always sensitive data somewhere, and sharing data in traditional ways is very hard to do because you may expose data to stakeholders that are not supposed to see that data. So the issue of data protection comes into play. Then these files are very easy to analyze. Very hard to analyze, very hard to move around. They often need to be converted into other formats. They need to be merged. So tons of issues that warrant the use of a cloud. And what does Snowflake? Well, Snowflake is a cloud platform that allows you to upload all types of data within the organization into a single analysis platform. And this data you upload in whatever format it is. And you upload it into Snowflake, and then Snowflake handles it. Snowflake also allows you to live feed your data into the software for real-time decisions. So your business operations can directly, perpetually live load everything onto Snowflake into that cloud data platform. So it's very, very powerful from that standpoint. And since it's in the cloud, you never get into the issue of bottlenecks, which means that sometimes computer networks, there's a limit as to how many files we can load at once. Well, with Snowflake, which leverages Amazon Web Services and Azure, GCP, whatever cloud product you use, you don't have the problem of these bottlenecks of uploading the files. Second important thing, once it's uploaded on a data platform, you can provide secured access to whoever needs access to that data. So you can decide to only show the data that someone is allowed to see. Once it's on the platform, you can run your analysis. You can create dashboards, live dashboards, and you can run these analysis or create live dashboard directly in the cloud, directly on the platform with credentials, not having to share dashboards with people who don't need to see those dashboards. So very powerful stuff. And you can now also create data applications, i.e. an application that runs on your data and can help you make decisions, can make decisions for you and run your data enterprise for you. You can do that directly on the platform. And you do that by only paying for the computing usage and the computing power. So that's all you have to pay. And you don't have to worry about having computers that are powerful enough to do that. It's all in the cloud. It's all instantly scalable to your needs. So it scales with you, and you don't have to worry about about having the right computer infrastructure. And lastly, secure data sharing with, say, your ecosystem or your suppliers. Like, you can access data from your suppliers. You can access data from companies in your ecosystem and use that data to inform your own data system and ecosystem. So it's a whole data sharing information where you don't have to contact someone outside of the organization to get data. You can just connect to their data directly live in Snowflake. And it creates a new market. So this is the industry demand that I love typically in these SaaS companies. Is like, you have a data marketplace. So now anybody who produces useful data can sell it on Snowflake. And they have thousands of data feeds that you can use then in your business, and that are just data broadcasted on Snowflake. So a good example of a data that could be useful to any business, for example, is weather data. Well, you can buy weather data or any type of specific data like that from any supplier you want. Financial data, um, you name it, all sort of statistics you can buy on Snowflake. So it's becoming the dominant platform for data. In the cloud, everything operated in the cloud. Another thing that I love about Snowflake, which I think is very important here, is their pricing is just right for the non-technical user. And that's very important. They have a pricing system that is very akin to t-shirt sizes, and that includes anything you may need into a bundle. And you go from extra small to medium to large, extra large, etc. That's how it charges products, which is very, very, very different from, say, Databricks, who has a very, very complex pricing structure in which you have to buy individually all of the small components, optimization knobs, features, options that you could possibly need to engage in data analysis or data loading, data merging, data transferring, data sharing. It really kind of nickel and dimes you for everything that you do on the Databricks platform, which means that it could be cheaper. But if the bill is cheaper for you on Databricks, that also means that you have to hire a team of data engineers that are going to be expert in that field. So actually, given the shortage that there is of skilled employees in that field, I believe that is the inferior pricing structure. And I think the all-inclusive pricing structure, t-shirt size style of Snowflake is much more understandable by organizations which may not have enough experts in data science. That coupled with the fact that using Snowflake is easier, it really fits their mission well. It's fairly easy. I recommend you to look at any demo of the Snowflake software to understand how, it kind of resembles Excel or a much simplified version of Microsoft Access. It is easy to use. It's nothing as daunting as you would see in some of the legacy apps. So I think this is a big plus for Snowflake. So what do we do with all of this data? Like, why are companies compelled to load their data as soon as they can on these platforms and actually leverage their data? Why are they compelled to do that? Well, one of the first reasons why they're compelled to do that is you're going to save tremendous costs by using all of your data. And one of the ways you save costs is when you use your data with your ecosystem, with your suppliers. So a classic example of that is, for example, imagine you're a store and you run out of products. But you have a very complicated supply chain. You can broadcast to everybody in the ecosystem that you just ran out of product XYZ, and the whole ecosystem has access to your data feed because they are also registered on Snowflake. And then we're like, okay, well, let's launch manufacturing. Let's reorder our primary supply, so you can activate your whole ecosystem of collaboration with outside firms through data in a very, very efficient way. So you don't have an entire value chain with buffers between different spots of the value chain with like tremendous amount of stock. No, data allows you to coordinate every single step of your value chain at a similar tempo, or tact, as they call it sometimes, and really, really allows you to save a lot of costs. You become a more efficient, a leaner operation that makes much faster decision, because you don't need to take a few days to let people in your ecosystem know. People in your ecosystem know right away, because all relevant information is shared in one unified ecosystem. So I think that is one of the most compelling, very, very powerful setup. Another one is you can share data with your customers. So think about how many apps we have today, like how many customers for whatever product you could think of as an app. Well, these apps are filled with data, and the data that these apps have is more and more and more and more and more complex. And so you could do everything in-house and build everything in-house. And your software just queries different databases, and it's all a mess and not necessarily well integrated. Or you could like align your customer facing apps with one single cloud data OS, that is Snowflake. And then you deal with what data needs to be shown to the customer within Snowflake and not within the app or the software itself. So it creates a much more efficient application and a much more scalable system, which I think is one of the part of the future. So you can think of a lot of apps, banks, financial institutions, hospitals, where customers actually need to access their data. Well, that data is directly pulled from Snowflake. And that also explains how you can have third-party data displayed in your dashboard that you provide to your customers, because you go through Snowflake, you go through the centralized monopoly type platform where all of the data is stored. And then lastly, and this is perhaps one of the even more powerful ways, is that it informs your decision making. So as you create more and more complicated dashboards, the first step is your managers get a dashboard and they can see, oh, well, you know what? I see that it's going to rain and I am missing some people in this part of the organization. It's going to rain, so that means there are going to be more customers, because when it rains, customers tend to use my service. Let me call HR, let me call management and say, oh, we got to staff that, because I see in my dashboard that there's going to be a lot of demand. This can improve your ROI. Like it's a decision-making tool. Dashboards can help you make decisions, can help you anticipate needs, and it can really help you improve everything, because as a manager, you don't think of all of the possible data points that could impact your decision. Like maybe the best manager does, but typically manager don't think about everything. So you could pair weather data with fines and building permits, with new laws, with the Twitter sentiment feed, with you name it, internal data from your suppliers. You could merge all this data, and then Snowflake finds you patterns and gives you recommendations. And then you, as the manager, make better decisions based on these recommendations displayed on these data dashboards that are going to help you improve your returns on investment. And the future of this is an app that actually makes the decisions for you, an app that can be predictive and that can enhance what's going to happen or predict what's going to happen and make decisions for you. So eventually this may make the need for managers even smaller. And I mean, this is really, really powerful stuff. When you start adding all of this information these companies receive and create an app that can make decisions, it's really powerful stuff. Pair that with AI. Think about AI and machine learning when it's going to be eventually added to these data lakes, right, and make decisions for you. It's going to be insane the amount of growth that companies can get like that. So let me move on here. So what do I like about Snowflake? So what is it that I really, really like about Snowflake? I like that it's easy to use. It's easier to use than Databricks. And so that is very important to me. I really, really like that. I like that there's a clarity of product offering. The product offering of Snowflake is very, very clear. If you look at a software like Palantir, it's not as clear. The customers are not as clear as to what something like Palantir does. Um, but Snowflake is a very clear product offering. I love the CEO. The CEO is a business genius, I would argue. Frank Slootman did 3 successful IPOs and has written a bunch of books on what? On growth and on leading an organization towards successful amount of growth. So I really, really like that about the CEO. What else do I like about the CEO? Well, look at the performance of the CEO's former company, ServiceNow. ServiceNow, in a matter of 8 years, 26x. So the CEO has done it before. That's very, very powerful stuff here. The CEO has done it before. The CEO is also owning 10% of Snowflake, which is very powerful. So Slootman, I believe, is a great CEO who has experience selling and scaling cloud businesses, who has written many books about the topic. The CEO is an expert, and that is a big, big plus here. Okay, then it's an agile firm. The firm Snowflake keeps launching new products all the time. There's always new products, and this is a recent product which has created a lot of waves on the internet. Which is Snowflake is now launching a product that is going to directly compete with Palantir's Foundry, and so of course it's probably not going to be as good as Foundry, but the question is how many very highly sophisticated customers are there that are willing to pay a fortune for Foundry versus a good enough product from Snowflake. I would argue there's quite a bit because I do believe in Palantir as well, but it doesn't mean that a second grade solution for building data apps is also not going to be successful. Also, let's not forget that all of these businesses integrate with each other. So you could have Snowflake as the basis for storing your data, and then you could also have machine learning or AI from another corporation that you use on Snowflake and operationalize on Snowflake. But they're very agile. So you can bet that whatever next big thing in the area of data analysis is, whatever that next big thing is, Snowflake will be able to innovate quickly and integrate it within their business, right? What else do I like about Snowflake? I love the marketplace. The fact that there's a marketplace tells me that there's a built-in moat. Customers that sell data are naturally going to go to the marketplace that has the most users, and that is Snowflake. And that's going to be the same for data apps. Customers developing data apps are going to go to a marketplace where there's the same people. So a marketplace gives you moat dynamics, just like it would give you dynamics on, say, a e-commerce website like Etsy or Amazon. There's marketplace dynamics to that. It provides you a moat where you go use the product because they have the most people, because each time you add another person, another company to the pool of companies that are already registered, the value of the network increases as a whole. So marketplaces not only add a layer of networked moat, but there's also another network effect, which is the network effect for data sharing, which is if you're interested in data and using data to improve your performance for your business, you are going to go to the spot where there is the most data. And so it creates a network effect. That is why people register to Facebook. They register to Facebook because that's where most other people are registered. So if data sharing, data apps, and the sale of data, each 3 types of entities that you need to find, what if these 3 entities are the most frequently present on Snowflake? That's going to create a network effect where people will just want to go there because that's what has the most options for you. Then the brand. I do believe they have a very, very, very good brand. They've existed for a long time. It's kind of a clever branding, and they have a good reputation in the enterprise world, mostly due to their CEO, who's very well connected and very famous. And I believe that marketing and the growth of their sales so quickly and their presence on the internet and on every website that matters shows me that there is a brand value, and that creates another moat. Then low cost positioning. I love that this business is low cost. Using a business like Snowflake is going to be cheaper than developing it in-house. Not to mention, it's probably going to be impossible to do all this data work in-house. And they have a low cost positioning compared to what companies can do on their own, but also compared to what competitors can do, like Databricks. Okay, Databricks can be cheaper, but you need to hire a whole bunch of data scientists for Databricks to be cheaper. And Palantir. Palantir, even though it is arguably the best software in what they do, they're very expensive software. So I love the low cost positioning of Snowflake. And the last reason why I love Snowflake is the support of the financial markets. Snowflake can issue more shares. There is no reason to believe that if there were to be more turmoil, Snowflake wouldn't be the company that gets the financial support of the markets. Snowflake has had financial support of the market. The CEO is well connected. They've had support for Warren Buffett, so I think the support of financial markets right now is more important than ever. So it's a quote unquote a Wall Street darling, and that's going to help, especially because Databricks is not public, and with the Fed right now raising interest rates, I don't think they're going to be public anytime soon. And Palantir is public, but has had a lot of stigma in the financial market because of its association with its unfair association with the SPAC slash meme stock craze, and I think it's unfair because Palantir was not a SPAC. But nonetheless, it's in the financial community, there is an unfair, bad association of Palantir with these very volatile companies. Not Snowflake. Snowflake was a darling of Wall Street, and that could really, really help them. So, moving on, what can we say about? I've said all these great things about Snowflake. There's so much going on. How does that translate into revenue growth? How does that translate into revenue growth? Well, revenue growth is outstanding. If you go back to the IPO prospectus, pre-IPO, they were at 120% year-over-year growth. Between 21 and 22, full years, they had 106%. Look at this, 106%, doubling from 592 million to 1 billion and 219 million. They've more than doubled their revenue. And that was from doubling and doubling multiple times before. How many times can Snowflake double its revenue? When I look at the current revenue growth of 83%, I would argue that this is a temporary slowdown. Because first of all, when I look at the next Q3 that's coming up, Q3 is historically a very good quarter. So annualized, this next Q3 should be in the low 90%. So that's one thing that tells me that 83% is actually on the very low end for this company. They've been hurt. IT spend is down. But to say that a company like Snowflake has been hurt after doing 83% in sales, that's a bold statement. But this is a company that has been doubling revenue every year for a very, very high number of years, and they will continue to do so. Look at the numbers that make me believe that revenue is going to be even higher. First number, the number of customer commitments, the remaining amount that they need, that they need to supply, right? Their orders, 2.7 billion. Their revenue right now, so 2.7 billion is what they got left in Q2. Their revenue right now is 497 in one quarter. So what? That's almost 6 times left of commitments, of customer commitments that they have to fulfill. That is tremendous. That's not it. What I love about Snowflake, Look at the dollar-based revenue retention rate. It's been above 70% almost every time, except here. 70%. That means every year the same customers spend 70% more money on Snowflake. So this is like a base, right? This is guaranteed, near guaranteed growth from that amount, right? Because they keep spending and spending and spending more. So imagine if the return on marketing spend is huge on this. And then lastly, let me show this one. Look at this. Did you know that Snowflake has barely even begun getting out of the US? Most of the business of Snowflake is still in the US. They have to go after Europe. They have to go after Asia Pacific. Major regions of the world have not seen Snowflake and what Snowflake can do yet. And what we know about software companies, American companies, is we know that eventually as they grow, there's even more business to be found outside of the United States. So this is a big growth runway that Snowflake has. I mean, very impressive growth runway. So right now, their current annual revenue is almost $2 billion. So 1,988,000,000. I have a hard time finding what the total addressable market is for the data cloud. And the reason for that is that when you search for data cloud online, all you can find is the total addressable market of the cloud and the cloud itself, but they don't specify. But when you actually try to narrow it down to a cloud data platform, which is different from putting your data in the cloud. I want to emphasize that. It's different from like loading your files and operating your computing in the cloud. That's AWS, what you find most of the time. But the total addressable market specifically for data sets, for uploading your data sets and analyzing, they estimate to be at $81 billion in January of 2020. And surely that number has grown. But let's even assume it's the same now. With the revenue that they have now, they would only have captured 2.4% of what they estimated their total addressable market to be almost 3 years ago. So the growth will be tremendous. The future total addressable market of Snowflake will be tremendous. They have not even begun capturing that market, and they are the leader. So it is plausible that this company continues to double its revenue for a foreseeable future. I don't know how long, but for quite a while. It is very much possible because the total addressable market is tremendous. Let me go back to my usual metrics. So to be conservative, I will say there is 80% growth going forward for Snowflake, to be conservative. Moving on. What is their competition? As discussed, Databricks is the most compelling competition, but Databricks is number 2. I listed 9 reasons why I prefer Snowflake over Databricks. And then on some features, they compete with Palantir. But that's okay. The market's big enough. Everybody's going to have their share of the market. The market is more than big enough. No customer concentration to speak of. Dollar-based net retention rate is 171%. So they have kind of this guaranteed built-in year-over-year compounding extra spend of 71%. That is extremely high for SaaS businesses. It's very, very, very high. Even usage-based SaaS, this is like very high. Typically, companies have like 130% begins to be where I'm interested. Typically, 171% is a dream come true. It is very, very high. It is hyper growth, a very definition of hyper growth. The company is recession resistant, I do believe, because they are the cheapest product compared to other options and they save money compared to in-house. The growth runway, as discussed, is tremendous, large total addressable market. And again, data is not going away anywhere. It is the fuel of the modern enterprise, and it's going to keep being the fuel, especially as data is more and more used to run apps on the data cloud. and so move away from a lot of human software interaction and just have apps deal with it. Like that's going to be tremendous, and that's perhaps their next growth runway. Acquisition has been great, only small companies, and then the marketing expense has been very high. They spend a lot of money on marketing, but why wouldn't you? When once you acquire a customer, they are highly likely to stay with you for a very, very long time. You increase your network effects, and you have this amazing dollar-based net retention rate. Yes, they've been spending a lot of money on marketing, but that is an investment. That is the very definition of an investment. This is not money lost, because once you acquire a customer, they're here to stay. And if this company stops spending on marketing, they would become very profitable, very, very profitable. But no, they decide to invest right now heavily to gain this winner take all market, because this is a winner take all market. All right. Any near-term bankruptcy risks? No, no, no. They did 606 million of positive free cash flow, and they have almost 4 billion of cash on the balance sheet. And what they are deciding to do, of course, to compensate a lot of their teams, is stock-based compensation, which is okay with me, because as you can see here, dilution has been fine. It's been really, really fine. And so, yeah, sure, we are getting diluted a little bit, but the company keeps cash, and the company keeps bankruptcy away and keeps its cash to finance its growth. Market cap is $42 billion. Annualized is almost $2 billion of revenue. Gross profit is 1.5 billion, 75% gross margin. Price to sales is 21.3, and price to gross profit is 28. This has dropped quite a bit. I mean, you can't say it's as expensive as it used to be. It is still very expensive by a lot of standards. But a company like Microsoft is close to a 10, right, in price to sell. So this is twice as expensive as Microsoft for how much again in growth? 100% growth, perhaps for a foreseeable future. I would argue I would be willing to pay twice as much. No debt whatsoever to speak of. Perfect. Company's anti-fragile. They can resist a crisis. Revenue per employee is very high at $500,000. I do love that. I do love that revenue per employee is so high. Let me move on. Of course, this company is doing so well, therefore, the stock is way down. The stock has been down 66% because the market right now is only focused on GAAP profitability. Your bottom line. That's all the market focuses on right now, because we have very short-term horizon. I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on the 10 years from now and how big that company can get 10 years from now. So I would argue this is quite the discount. This is quite the discount that you can buy Snowflake at. Not investment advice, but quite a discount. Valuation versus overgrowth stocks. Yes, there is no denying that Snowflake is more expensive than companies like Datadog or GitLab, which are also hyper growth company. But if they can if they can go back to 100% or 110% growth for a few years, I would argue that this price to sales is well earned. I would argue that they've really, really earned it. If they can double and double and double again. Right? As you compound, these numbers become insane. They are more expensive, but in light of their higher growth, I think that extra cost is warranted. And so these are the other companies that I've analyzed on this channel, by the way. All companies that I'm buying, that I'm bullish on, that I think are great companies. And the discrepancy for Snowflake, frankly, is well earned, because Snowflake grows much faster than everybody else, right? They will go back to 100%, I believe. That is my working hypothesis. And so the market cap is $42 billion. And so the question is, if they 10x, right, that would be $420 billion if they 10x. Well, first of all, let's remember the value proposition. Like, the value proposition of a Snowflake is the cloud data operating system. Look at a company like Microsoft, who has the operating system of the personal computer, the PC. Like, what is the value of what? If you look at Microsoft, how much of that value is due to Windows? probably a more than a few hundreds of billions of dollars, probably. AWS, I would argue, Amazon Web Services to Amazon, I would argue $1 trillion of Amazon is probably AWS. Now, of course, AWS is so much bigger. But when you take into account these orders of magnitude of these monopolistic companies, if Snow achieves a monopoly in the data cloud OS, or even a duopoly, like even if it's a duopoly, like if they achieve that, I don't see this number as shocking if they achieve that in 10 years. And so to me, this company has a potential to do a 10x. And I think Warren Buffett agrees with me. And I think a lot of institutions and smart investors agree with me because 100% from a base in the billions of dollars of revenue per year, being able to achieve 100% at these large numbers is just mind-blowing, and it's worth not investment advice, but it's really worth a lot, I believe. If Snowflake was equal to a 10x, it'd be $420 billion. Trademark of this channel is that the dollar is going down in value at an unprecedented pace. I believe the dollar is decreasing at about 15% in value each year. That is monetary inflation. $1 today is $1 today, but $1 in 2032 will be more worth like 25 cents of today. So that's what $1 could buy you in 2032. And I have videos about monetary inflation in this channel that you can feel free to watch. But what does that mean, right? 420 billion in 2032, that would only be $105 billion today. That's the number we need to attach to Snowflake. We need to fill this number. And again, it is not that big. Let's remember that the value of the dollar will be much less going forward. So I believe Snowflake is a company that will beat the denominator growth of the US dollar without any issue, but will also grow the numerator really, really quickly. And again, if you have a stock at 100%, think about how forgiving a stock like this can be. It can be a very forgiving stock because if the stock drops another 50%, well, guess what? That's okay because a year later, your stock has doubled revenue. So you're back to square one. You're back to where you were, right? And compound that. 2 years, 4 years. So growth trumps everything else. Revenue growth trumps everything else when it is at 100% a year. Not investment advice, entertainment only, but that is my intuition here. And so I'm very happy to buy the stock at these levels. This stock has been unfairly punished. Thank you so much for watching my channel. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you.